Okay, so I'm Ines and she's Sara, and we are both working at PLOS, and we are going to tell you a little bit of hands-on on how to do peer review. So it's supposed to be a workshop, and we are going to show you putting our journals as a model, and yeah, getting to the details. So first, we are going to tell you who we are, and then we will go through what responsibilities you have as a reviewer, what peer review means at PLOS, the good and the bad, how to write your review, how to get involved in peer review, and finally the future of peer review. And we are hoping to do a bit of an interactive session, so we may ask you to do some things for us. Not very adventurous, don't worry. I don't have a lot of time. So who is PLOS first? By the way, we are going to switch back and forward, so we will talk different sections, each of us. I hope you don't get too dizzy. So PLOS was the result of mainly, do I have a pointer? Mainly of Pat Brown. So Pat Brown had a lab in Stanford, and he was, I don't know if you know, one of the inventors of microarrays. And of course, he produced a huge amount of data. And when he was publishing his research in Nature Cell or Science, he was very frustrated because he had all this amount of data and it was never available to the public. So he was thinking about solutions on how to make this available and without paying money to all the researchers that were around the world. So he started having conversations, informal conversations with Harold Barmus, the one on the left, who was his supervisor for the postdoc, and with a postdoc from his own lab, Mike Eisen. So the three of them, got together and started talking and thought, well, let's do something about it. And what they did was to create PLOS, the Public Library of Science. And this is our mission. So PLOS is a non-profit organization, and our mission is to accelerate progress in science and medicine by leading transformation in research communication. So this is how it started. The idea was that you would just send a paper, and if we were going to publish it, you would pay a fee, and then everybody would have access to it, instead of paying every time that someone would want to see each paper a fee. So they circulated an open letter, and it was signed by many, many reviewers. I was a PhD student at the time. I signed the letter. I thought it was very exciting. And then, of course, they tried to get funding, and they were lucky, and they got 9 million from the Moore Foundation. And in 2003, they started PLOS, and the first journal was PLOS Biology. So I work in PLOS Biology. Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is a timeline of PLOS. In 2004, PLOS Medicine was launched. In 2005, they were the community journals, as we call it. They are run by academic editors. So it's PLOS Computational Biology, PLOS Genetics, PLOS Pathogens. In 2006 came PLOS One, that I'm sure that everybody has heard about it. Is the world's largest journal so far. And then a bit later, PLOS Neglected Tropical Disease came. And these are more points in the timeline. So we published in 2012 the 15,000 article. We had our 10th anniversary in 2013, 100,000 article in 2014. And last year we celebrated the 10th year anniversary of PLOS One. And this is a summary slide of the highlights of 2016. So far we have published close to 200,000 articles, all peer review, and everything. Last year only 20,000, 27,000. And these are some stats that you may be interested in. Sara? Okay, so after this brief introduction, I'm just going to go a bit into the more nitty-gritty of the talk. We're going to start with just some basic responsibilities of peer reviewers. So according to the Committee of Publication Ethics, Committee of Publication Ethics is an organization that was founded in 1997 by journal editors, initially a small group of UK journal editors, and now they has more than 10,000 members, I believe, and includes all those people that are interested in the publication ethics and journal editors. So according to the Committee on Publication Ethics, or COPE, peer reviewers are external experts chosen by editors to provide written opinions with the aim of improving the study. So many times, particularly from an author's perspective, we can see the peer review process as a struggle to publish, as people that are just there to put us down, reject our papers, make life difficult for us, but actually the aim is really to improve, as we see, the quality of the paper. So it's for the benefit of the wider community, as we say it. There are several things you should be considering once you are invited to peer review an article. First of all, you should consider whether you have the right expertise to do so. You might be really keen on reviewing a paper, but actually it maybe falls too far away from your area of expertise, or maybe some of the methodology is far too complex, so it's really important to recognize your own limitations. Also, consider where you have the time to do so. We all want our manuscripts to get published as quickly as possible and want to be efficient, so it's important to try to provide your reviewers in a timely manner. Accuracy, it's quite important to be objective and accurate as possible and provide specific points that the authors can action, if possible. And another important thing is to take into consideration the ethics surrounding publication. So, as we say, you might identify one of the authors as one of your collaborators. You have recently published with them. In our case, in PLOS, we consider any past collaboration or publication in the last 5 years as a potential conflict of interest, which we think it could jeopardize how the review process is perceived. So even if you don't consider it to be a competing interest, is what the other committee might perceive as being a potential competing interest. That's will be the important thing. Just think if you were put in the same position and people ask a question in your work just based on the peer review, whether you would like to be in that position. There's more information about this in the Committee of Publication Ethics, which link is provided there. I really strongly encourage everybody, if you haven't checked so, to do so. This is basically the, as I said, how it looks the first page of the COPE, and it clearly states that it's a forum for editors and publishers of peer review journals to discuss all aspects of publication ethics. It's quite interesting as well, because there are cases of particular misconducts or breaches of publication ethics that are really interesting, and you can learn something about it. And particularly for peer reviewers, they provide ethical guidelines, which you can follow and download as a PDF, summarizing the basic principles to which peer reviewers should adhere, as well as the expectations, not only while you are peer reviewing, but as well after post-publication, which are your the expectations for peer reviewers. So I'm just going to continue. And I'm going to tell you what peer review means as PLOS, so using PLOS as an example. Unfortunately, we are not very innovative in a peer review, but we will finish it, the workshop, just trying to think about new ways. So one of the main things that you have to take into consideration when you review a paper is the scope of the journal that you are reviewing for. So I advise you strongly to first go to the website of the journal and see what is the scope. So we have PLOS Biology and the other journals except for PLOS One, where the scope, you have to have an exceptional significance piece of research, which has to be original, and it has to have relevance for all areas of biological science. So very broad scope and novel and significance, which a lot of journals do. In PLOS One, the scope is different. So they want to publish papers that are scientifically rigorous research, and it doesn't really matter if a piece of research is novel. And you have natural science, medical research, engineer, and other social sciences. So as far as so the science is sound, we will publish it. And actually, one of the main focus now in PLOS One is reproducibility, where if you publish another piece of research and you get the same results, it means that the study is solid. And they also publish negative results. So so these are the criteria that you should consider. What is the scope? It has to be rigorous research and of high technical standard. The contribution for the field, so it has a broad scope or it's just specific for some scientists. The novelty, if required, and very importantly, data sharing. So as you hear about our funders, we are very interested in sharing the data. So everything that is published has to be shared, and there are no exceptions. So this is something that is very important, and you should check if you review for our journals.
Yeah, so in these sections, we have tried to provide some examples of what we consider to be good and bad reviews. So we tried to keep it quite general, so because we weren't sure which are your backgrounds, you might be from different disciplines, so they're just general examples, and maybe if we can just discuss this together, that would be great. So this is just a case where an author was giving a presentation at a national meeting about whatever, about a paper which was peer-reviewed recently but was rejected from a journal, so it's not published. A member of the audience who was not involved in the peer review, so the peer review was open and he knew who had reviewed the paper, so he knew or she knew that this was one of the peer reviewers, asked questions to the authors from a copy of the manuscript and not from the talk they gave. So can you see any wrongs or good or any improper interaction in this scientific interaction? Do you think this is correct, or would you be worried about anything in particular? Are you worried that a person that wasn't involved in the peer review process of an article that hasn't yet been published has a copy of the manuscript? So we thought that this is quite scary. It's a breach of confidentiality. It's in fact a case. This is the case number from the Committee of Publication Ethics. You can look up to it and you can look at the resolutions. So in this committee, journals or people that are concerned about particular practices can ask for advice, and this was one of the cases that was put to them. In this case, it was found that there must have been a breach of confidentiality, so perhaps the reviewer went to the pub, talked to his mates about this fantastic paper or this crappy paper that he was reviewing, blah, 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 and circulated a copy freely through the lab, to the lab members, which resulted in a breach of confidentiality. So yeah, it's quite important to consider when you are reviewing a paper that until that is published, it's not public, it's somebody else's work. And if you were in the other position, perhaps you wouldn't want your work to be discussed so openly if it hasn't been yet published or you are not presented in a conference. this is just another example of review. Here we have just tried to take out the things that are more related to the science, just for you to have a little look and think whether the tone of the review is adequate or whether you have phrased things differently. So we have just highlighted a few things. So overall, the work tackles an interesting topic and sheds new light on the influence of whatever. The scientific rationale for the investigation is sound, and the authors present a few novel and important observations that provide a logical extension to previous work, blah, blah, blah. However, some information is missing and should be provided to clarify a few issues. Additional experiments are required to strengthen the study and support the author's conclusions. Then they come to point the issues that should be addressed. So major criticisms. Data significance appears to be overestimated in some of the graphs based on the visual inspection of the images. However, it's very difficult to make a proper evaluation because there is information missing, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that the tone here is adequate, or are they being too harsh? Will you reference things differently? So yeah, so we thought that although they are being critical, so they have a general, so it's nice to notice how this changes the structure. They start with positive remarks. We all like to hear positive things about work. It's really nice. And they explain that they think it's fairly good, and then they come to point out the things that might be flaws, that might be missing. Particularly, experiments, data. So it is quite common to start with a general overseeing of the manuscript and then try to distill that into actionable points, because it's very nice for somebody to just praise your work or to criticize hardly your work, whatever. But what you want as an author is probably actionable points that you can do something about to improve your work. So this is from EMBO journals. EMBO publishes all the reviews, so it's a very good source also for information. You can just check there. Not all of them are open, meaning that not all of them are signed, but at least you can check the decision process, how the editor came to assess, how many rounds of the revisions there have been, the response from the authors. It's really good if you want to gain some experience about also the tone, because sometimes it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. We are all humans, we are a bit sensitive about our work. You might be working that piece of work for the last 5 years. You don't want to hear that it's absolutely crap. So coming to that, these are some quotes about real reviews. So one of them, the authors are seemingly ignorant of much of the literature. Well, this could have been rephrased perhaps to say, I would strongly advise the author of this paper to rewrite the introduction and discussion to include more up-to-date references such as, and then provide a nice list of references. We can get similar meaning in both of them. We know that the review was not very happy with the background information that was provided by the authors. But with the first one, it's just putting it down the author. Well, the second one actually is giving you actionable items that you can take to improve your work. To mention, when providing references, it's very important just not to provide those by yourself. I mean, we all like our work to be cited, which is brilliant, and it could be very relevant, but there's also a very common misconduct to just cite your own work or that of your collaborators to inflate your citations, which is not ideal. So within reason, of course, you can propose your work to be cited, but just don't limit to only your work. Yeah. Sure. Yes, we do. Yes, unfortunately, so I work for PLOS One, so we do see quite a lot of articles. So unfortunately, some of them are not picked up because we don't take every editorial decision. We haven't got the capacity, nor the means, and we don't have academic editors whose role is to oversee the peer review process. But there are cases, where we pick up the tone. So I think there is a fine line between being critical and being constructively critical. And sometimes it's not, as I say, not so much what you are saying, but how you are saying it. And it's very useful to put yourself in the other person's position if somebody, I'm not native, obviously I have a very strong Spanish accent, that's fine. If they tell me your language is poor, it needs to be revised, perhaps by a native speaker or a professional company, you can say that. But if somebody says, well, this English is rubbish, I cannot even understand it, it might as well just be toilet paper, well, how are you going to react to that? So it's the tone often what is the problem, not so much the message. And we do get quite a few issues, particularly also from the other side, when reviewers perhaps English is not the first language, it can sound a bit harsher than they actually mean. Thankfully, at least in PLOS, we have the capacity of contacting academic editors, have a chat with them, and see whether the person responsible for the review or the decision letter should be contacted to give them some guidance about how things should be rephrased. So although we don't pick all of them, just from the scale side, we try to do our best. So I cannot talk for PLOS biology, but for PLOS 1, we do have a peer reviewer rating system. So yeah, so academic editors, based on how useful the review is being to them or not, because yeah, sometimes even if it's not damaging, maybe there's a one-liner saying like, yeah, it's fantastic, publish it. That's not really useful. And it's not even clear to me whether you have read the paper, at least if you had given the academic editor a little summary of your expectations of what you thought, even if it was no comments, no major criticism or minor criticisms, but just a brief summary in your own words, I would have got the impression you have read the paper. So maybe it's not very useful. And the academic editors get the choice to grade the review. Then there is an averaging, I don't know how it works exactly, the algorithm. So then when academic editors invite reviewers, they can see the grading to see how useful other academic editors have found that reviewer in particular. Yeah, although we don't oversee every single decision, it's impossible, and we don't believe that that's our role, because we believe that the community should self-regulate to a certain extent. We try to contact the people who might require some more advice or guidance, and we do provide webinars, training courses to try to improve the type of feedback that they give. As for PLOS biology?
Yeah, so I mean, all this is obviously internal, because if someone does something wrong, you don't want to put it in a banner and say, whoa, this person is doing a bad review. But we do contact directly the reviewers, and I normally rewrite the sentence and suggest some wording in case they're very busy and they don't want to rewrite it. So you don't have an excuse of, I don't have the time to do this. So I rewrite a paragraph and I send it to the reviewers, and we say, we thought this was a bit rough, and we think this should be rewarded before. We are not going to send this to the authors, so if you want us to send it, you can either choose, give us permission to send this, or rewrite the paragraph if you want to. And normally the reaction is embarrassment, and they do better next time, hopefully.
Yeah. It has to be said that in most cases, we are lucky enough that the people we contacted, that seems to be sensible. So a lot of the time, yeah, when you are pushed with time, you might just write something and maybe it didn't come as well as you would have wanted to communicate your message. So we haven't had, at least from my personal experience, I haven't had those cases where they have said, no, I absolutely won't change the tone of my review, this stands as it is. Most of the time, if you talk rationally to a person, the reply you get is also rational, which is good. So yeah. And then, thankfully, for the worst cases, we have institutions such as COPE, which are always there to try to provide advice or guidance if there is difficulties in the peer review process for both authors, editors, and reviewers as well. So this is just another example of peer review. The point is so elementary that it does not require a manuscript of this length to develop it, which could have been rephrased perhaps to, I will strongly advise the authors to shorten their manuscript to ensure that the point comes clearly across or whatever. Basically, the reviewer thought that the manuscript was far too long. Fair enough. Sometimes we get bored by reading the same things over and over, but it could have been put in a different way.
Okay, so we thought we would give you some points on how to write a good review. Probably nothing that is not new for you, but we thought it was worth, nevertheless, to go through them. As we said, when you're an author and you receive your reviews, you like to have nice comment, the good and the bad. And so what I would advise you is to focus first on the positive. So just try to think what this paper is going to add to the science in that field and write all the positive aspects. Then you give feedback, and of course in a constructive way. Do not try to get aggressive. You just rephrase your sentences. A good exercise is when you finish the review, read it again and see if you would like to receive this review. Are there any experiments missing to support the conclusions? So you have to focus in the main experiments. So we don't want really endless studies published that discover absolutely anything in the world. Research is very, very broad. So the paper has to simply support the conclusions that the paper claims to support. So just focus on those and highlight them as key. Check the stats. So everybody has, I don't think you can give the excuse of, I don't know anything about the stats. Everybody has to have the basic knowledge of stats. It's just part of being a scientist. So you have to check to see if they analyze data where the differences are really small. They really cannot use an analysis that tests for differences that are very big. So everything has to be customized. And perhaps the statistical analysis is wrong because they use the wrong analysis and they get completely different results. So that's very important. Remember, you are really not a copy editor. So that's what we are asking of you. We do have, many journals have copy editors. And when the paper is going to be published, these professional copy editors are going to check it. So do not check if you're missing an S or something is, the verb is not right. What you can do is to check if it's written by a non-speaking, not English-speaking speaker, if the English is clear or not. It can be simple, but if it's not clear, nobody's going to understand the paper. And if some of the sentences need to be clarified, you have to point out that as well. Are the results or conclusions overstated? So that's a very, very common thing in papers, even the ones that are published in Nature Science. They are amazing writers among scientists that they manage to bluff their way. And they are very skillful in saying, I am showing this, and you don't realize, but they don't show what they are saying. But you don't realize. So you should check that. Are they actually showing experiments supporting these statements? If not, you have to point it out. Are there any key references missing? Again, you don't have to cite your own work if it's not relevant, but if they say someone published this or is known already this, they have to mention what reference is there. And if it's wrong, you should point it out. Are the figure or figure legends representative of the text? Check all the figures, see if they're not clear, they're too small, they're too big, if they can be improved, if the colors are all wrong or confusing. And check also the figure legends. Are they representative of the text? Are they missing some information? And I forgot to put it, but you actually pointed out in your talk, supplementary data. That's very, very important to check. So you should check always the supplementary data. Is all the data included and accessible? As I said, at PLOS we are very focused on that, and we want all the data to be included and shared with the community. So how to write my review? As As I said, you have to make a summary and your general opinion of the paper. Then you should highlight the major issues. So these are the issues that should be essential. So without those experiments supporting the conclusions, the paper should not be published. But there are also minor issues. So this includes clarifications and also desirable experiments. So be honest, and as I said, you don't want to publish an endless paper. But you can put, well, the paper could be improved by doing this, but it should not, so this should be left at the discretion of the authors. They should not have to do this if they don't wish to waste their time to make the paper beautiful. Confidential comments to editors. So we do have those in PLOS biology, but we only encourage the authors to use those when you have something important to tell us that you don't want to share with the authors. So you found in a figure something that is actually doesn't look very good, like a splice that is not mentioned, or something that looks a bit dodgy, or you know that there is something wrong with the paper. So use that box to make us comments, but don't use it for praise the papers towards the authors and then say all the negative things towards us, because that puts us in a very compromised position, and it's not nice.
So we thought also that perhaps some of you might be quite early on in your research career, and perhaps you don't get as many invitations as you might wish to peer review, which don't worry, that will change for sure. In a few years' time, you will see. So there are several things you can do to gain more experience and be more proactive to get more invitations to peer review, if so you wish to, which I strongly encourage, because I think it's a brilliant way of learning also, not only about what's going on in the wider community, what's the really popular science at the moment or whatever, but it's also really nice of getting more experience in a scientific way to know how other people formulate their experiments and their studies, and to critically evaluate papers. So I think it's a great way of getting more scientific experience overall, peer reviewing. So the most straightforward way to gain more experience is showing an interest, asking your supervisor, boss, PI, departmental head, whether they have showing them that you are interested and whether they have any peer reviews you can help them at. Usually, the people with with most seniority, or the people that have the longest publication records, people that have stayed in the department for longer, they tend to get lots of publications. Unfortunately, most of you will be not only peer reviewers, you will also be researchers. You have your other career, your other professional life, your personal life. So a lot of these people cannot do all the peer reviews that they will wish to. So often they are more than happy to share this responsibility with. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
The problem with that is then the PhD students or postdoc, they don't have the recognition.
So that's something we strongly encourage in PLOS. So you have although we don't operate an open peer review system, you do have the opportunity to sign your review. And actually, one of the questions when you do so is, did anybody help you? Did anybody help you in this peer review? So both people are recognized, because it is true that if you are early on in your career, your supervisor, PI, boss might still be overlooking, so they might provide some critical input into your work, even if the review was mainly done by you. So we acknowledge that both both persons' roles should be credited, both the boss or PI supervisor, whatever, but as well as the PhD or younger career researcher. I think it is very important to improve the transparency of the peer review process overall. So yeah, at PLOS you have the opportunity.
You can assume those are your official revisions.
Yeah.
For example, you can add that
Yes, yes. And if your bosses wishes to disclose their name as well, you have the opportunity to include both names, both yours, the bosses as well. So yeah, so that, as you say, in your problem record, it will be both names. Because as you say, it's very common practice and often is not recognized that is done by younger lab members or team members.
Yeah, so if you do that, I would encourage you to ask your supervisor to add your name and make sure that it is there.
And make sure also that they're happy with their name to be disclosed as well, because perhaps not everybody is happy to have an open peer review process. Another way of gaining experience, perhaps not as such an official way, is to join or start a journal club to learn how to critically evaluate papers. Most departments have them, even specialized ones. I know that in the ecology department here, they have one only about statistics, where they only focus on the statistics of the paper, which is brilliant. You might also want to get involved in open peer review, 1000, bioRxiv. There are journals that provide peer review mentoring programs. For example, on top of my head, the American Psychological Association and the affiliated journals provide so for junior researchers, where you can just join one of these programs. During the first couple of reviews, I believe, you are mentored by somebody else to gain some experience and you are overseen. So I will encourage you to check within your discipline whether there are such programs going on for mentoring. And also, you can always add post-publication comments in articles. So nowadays, most journals allow this, PubMed also. So you can just, even if it's not during the peer review process, you can still critically evaluate the paper and add those comments.
Okay, so peer review models, I think you have heard over the day mainly all the peer review models that there are. So there is the traditional peer review, which is the single blind. So you know who the author is, but they don't know who you are. We do encourage all reviewers to sign their reviews, and it's actually great to have this, but we also give the option of being anonymous. eLife, I think you have heard this morning about them, and they do the collaborative review, where all the identity of the reviewers are known by each other, and there is a point in the review process when they all have written the review, where they interact with each other and decide what is necessary for the paper, and they send a single letter with it. There are also, or used to be, the Axios review. I don't know if you heard about it. Unfortunately, it's now over and closed down this month. But it was a portable peer review, so you would pay a fee and send your paper, and people would be asked to provide a review. And with these reviews, you could go to a journal and ask if they would be interested in publishing this paper. I think it's a very futuristic way of peer review. Unfortunately, perhaps it was a bit too early for its time, but I think we will see some more initiatives like this in the future, hopefully. And the F1000, you have heard about it as well. So they just publish the papers pre-review, and then they contact the reviewers, and everybody can just put some comments on review, and then the reviews are published with the paper, and the double line is where you don't know who the author is. So now the future of peer review.
Yeah, I think you have already seen this. I love it. Yeah, so as we say in PLOS, we still have either single blind, although we encourage reviewers to sign their reviews. Unfortunately, it's the case that I think also, as Corina said, that we tend to see more signed ones, the ones that are more positive towards the authors, and not so much the negative ones, which is, I think, is an important trend to be broken as well within PLOS. But within PLOS, we strongly believe in transparency, reproducibility. That's why we have our policies regarding ethics, data availability, minimal data sets, underlying data, raw data, and one of them is also surrounding peer review. So we strongly believe that the future might be moving towards open peer review, where possibly all the biases are left to one side and you're just judged based on the quality of work you do, not who you are or who are you evaluated by. However, as all peer review models, we realize that they might have some cons and some pros as well. So we'll be happy to hear your ideas on that. Yeah.
What is wrong and what is in favor of open peer review? Corinne has said a lot of things about it, but maybe you can add original ideas. So I'm just going to give you one each. You can pick.
So in front of your notepad, you have a couple of post-its, so that we don't have to, you don't have to read if you don't wish to. You can just put it in the wall or something, the pros and cons, and then you can discuss them together to see what you think, what people think, and keep it anonymous so people don't feel embarrassed if they don't wish to read it aloud. So.